is the government's plan for the economy in 2021? Well, earlier today, President Buhari revealed some policy directions for the new year as amidst the Presidential Economic Advisory Council. And as Nigeria continues to navigate its way through the waters on its way to the dream of a better nation, questions abound. What is holding us back? Are we on the right course? And just how close are we? We seek some answers tonight. Hello everyone, this is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Kikulu here in Lagos. Well, 2 more days and it's goodbye to 2020, a year that has given us another opportunity to measure just how far our politics has come in this democratic journey. Well, the jury's out there. The indices are there for everyone to see, and interestingly, you'll still find different opinions on the government's performance at the various levels, but especially at the level of the federal government. And for a lot of Nigerians, the buck stops at the desk of the president. By the way, that expression was made popular in the 1940s by a president of the United States, Harry Truman, who put a sign just right on top of his desk saying, "The buck stops here," which essentially means the president has to make the decisions and accepts the ultimate responsibility for those decisions. We'll take a look at some of those decisions of the president and the government at large, as well as the consequences on the program tonight. But speaking of the president, he had a meeting with the Presidential Advisory or the Economic Advisory Council earlier today to reveal the global and domestic economy in the outgoing year, as well as make plans for the coming year. Now, one of the main outcomes of that meeting is the president's directive to the CBN not to give money for food importation in the coming year. He says about 7 states are producing all the rice that we need. Well, this order is not new, actually. It has seen traders in food and fertilizer move to the parallel market for foreign exchange, which of course is costlier. And on the other hand, a number of farmers who should benefit from this order have been under attack from insurgents and bandits. One of the latest, of course, being the gruesome killing of farmers in Zabamari, Borno State last month. So this and other factors have led to food prices rising, with the composite food index at 18%. By the way, the last time it was that high was in 2018. But then the president is promising to keep a keen eye on food inflation in 2021. And just in case you're wondering what the solution to this is, going back to the land is the way out, says the president. And here's more from what the president said earlier today. He says, "We will continue to encourage our people to go back to the land. Our elite is indoctrinated in the idea that we are rich in oil, leaving the land for the city for oil riches." Well, we're back to the land now. He says we must not lose the opportunity to make life easier for our people. He ends by saying, "Imagine what would have happened if we didn't encourage agriculture and closed the borders. We would have been in trouble." Also at that meeting was the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Ministers of Finance and Humanitarian Affairs, the Chairman of the Council, Professor Aide Salami, and other members of the Council. So that happened at the Presidential Villa and virtually. But that's not the only place you'll find serious discussions about the state of the nation's economy, governance, security, and more. Over the past few weeks, there have been several assessments of Nigeria. Take, for example, that editorial by Financial Times, which contained a dire appraisal of the country. Well, part of that editorial reads, "The population," now speaking about Nigeria, already above 200 million, is growing at a breakneck 3.2% a year. The economy has stalled since 2015 and real living standards are declining. This year, the economy will shrink 4% after COVID-19 dealt a further blow to oil prices. And that part ended by saying the country desperately needs to put its finances propped up by foreign borrowing on a sounder footing. That's on the one hand. And then, of course, we have the Bishop of Sokoto Catholic Diocese and a member of the National Peace Committee, Bishop Matthew Kuka, saying that President Buhari deliberately sacrificed the dreams of those who voted for him to what seemed like a program to stratify and institutionalize northern hegemony by reducing others in public life to second-class status. Now, he was talking about appointments. Goes on to say the president has pursued this self-defeating and alienating policy at the expense of greater national cohesion. Every honest Nigerian knows that there is no way any northern Muslim president could have done a fraction of what President Buhari has done by what he calls his nepotism and get away with it. So that's on another hand, a statement by the Bishop of the Sokoto Catholic Diocese. And of course, we have a response from the government through the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed. Take a look at that response directly now to Bishop Kuka, saying Kuka and other religious leaders have a responsibility to speak truth to power, but that truth must not come wrapped in anger, hatred, disunity, and religious disharmony, calling for a violent overthrow of a democratically elected government, no matter how disguised such a call is, and casting a particular religion as violent is not what any religious leader should engage in, and certainly not in a season of peace. So clearly, quite a lot happening in the political sphere at this time, both behind the scenes and in the full glare of everyone. But then the picture remains Project Nigeria. So let's make sense of all of this. We're being joined on the program tonight by Mr. Yabagi Sani, the Chairman, Action Democratic Party, ADP. He joins us from our Abuja studio, and joining us virtually is Mr. Aliyu Abdullahi, Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Office of the First Lady. Gentlemen, good to have you on the program. Well, let me begin with Mr. Yabagi Sani. We are clearly at a crescendo of some sort with what has happened this year so far and what is still happening so far. So let me begin by asking you, how do you rate the government's handling of this buck? That's the question. How do you rate the government's handling of this buck, which a lot of Nigerians believe stops at its desk?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate Nigerians and particularly the Christian festivals for this Christmas, and wish you a Happy New Year in advance. Yes, Nigeria, I think we have to thank God that Nigeria is still one indivisible entity under a democratic governance, and I think that's a big achievement, because if you look at that against the backdrop of what happened in 2020, you know that God really loves this country, because a lot happened, that one would have thought will sort of take us, like you said, to the precipice. But Nigeria has come a long way. We have a lot of settled issues in this country. We have accepted this country as one indivisible entity, like I said, and we have a lot of resilience. Our economy is an economy with solid fundamentals. We have a lot of resources, like we all know: human capital, natural resources, the size of the economy itself, and even the landmass that we have, and the good weather, good and arable lands, for agriculture, and everything that you need in a country is here. What is lacking is leadership. And I'm happy you talked about the buck stopping at the table of Mr. President. Take the issue of insecurity. I believe Mr. President has really, stepped up to the plate. Perhaps, the issue of insecurity will not be as bad as it is today, because I think there's a need for Mr. President to take a very critical look at that aspect of our life, because where there's no security, forget about economic progress, unity, and even peace. People are living in fear. So even investments that we need to push this economy to where it's supposed to be will not come, because nobody wants to risk his life in a situation where nobody seems to be governing in terms of taking decisions, hard decisions that will tell the citizens that, yes, Mr. President is in charge and he doesn't give a damn whose ox is God. I'm talking about the issue of the service chiefs, because there cannot be any affront that will be more than the bandits, taking their attacking, the citizens of Katsina State when Mr. President was in Katsina. Shortly after about so many farmers were slaughtered in Borno State, and immediately the occurrences have been happening, and as we speak, it's still happening in the same Katsina. So where else do you expect to have the highest level of security other than where you have your number one citizen, the commander-in-chief himself? And still, I have not heard of even a DPO queried for what happened, in Katsina. Not to talk of the commissioner of police or the IG or even any service chiefs. So where is the issue of discipline? Any system where you don't have, there's no discipline. I mean, people are not punished, people are not queried. Of course, it will be where you land is a roller coaster. I mean, it's a roller coaster where you land is anyone's guess.
Well,
that's
big
the
questions
kind of
you have
we have
raised
in this country, and this is
big
why
questions
we
you
are
have
calling on
raised
Mr.
there.
President that.
Pardon me, you can land on that before I take it to our guests.
Okay. We are calling on Mr. President to please, do what he is made of. We know that he has the capacity to do that, except if there is something between him and these service chiefs. Otherwise, why should the issue of service chiefs be so important to Nigerians?
Right.
Over and above Mr. President's
performance
himself.
Okay.
It's like
Mr. Sani,
either there is some kind of
let's take this to our other guests,
against the civilian administration.
Right. Pardon me, it's just so we can get his opening statement so we can have a robust conversation. You'll still get to continue on that trail of thought, but just to get Mr. Abdullahi's opening comment. So it's been a tussle, really, between overwhelming number of Nigerians who believe the government has not done well enough. You heard Mr. Sani speaking about security and the government stepping up to the plate. So that's on one hand. And of course, there are those who say that this government is doing well. And I believe that you belong to that group. So the question will be, how would you convince those who belong to the former group to really see things the way you see it?
Well, thank you, Aide, for having me, and compliments of the season to Nigerians and to you at Channels Television. It's really very easy to actually make a case for the administration, for the president, because there are a lot of things to be seen on the ground that we can point at, that we can say, these are things that this president, this administration has done for the country that were not feasible before now. Summing of them from the promises that the president made during the campaign based on those three-pronged areas of economy, anti-corruption, and security, we can point to a number of things that this administration got right. Yes, it's a work in progress. We know the challenges that is actually facing the country, but yet no one should deny that some things, some milestones has actually been achieved, even in the security that we are discussing that is the trend now. For example, the issue that Engineer Yabagi brought about the abduction of the children in the Kankara boys in Katsina, were they not returned? And we had we have a government or an incident to compare with what happened now. Not very long ago in 2014, before the coming of this administration, another group of students were actually abducted. But due to inaction of that government of that time, a lot of them were not returned, were not gotten back. But that is a clear difference, between what other government has done and what government President Muhammad Buhari has done now. We can see it even in the insecurity, in the insecurity situation. Go to Northeast. Before, I am from Northeast myself. Before the coming of President Muhammad Buhari, a lot of us cannot visit our hometowns, but not now. I mean, there are pockets of attacks here and there, but don't forget, we have drawn this, we have said this without number, what it used to be before, from Northeast to Northwest to North Central, even to Kogi State, what Boko Haram used to do. Abuja, UN building was bombed. Yanya twice was bombed. But now that's not the case. So if we cannot appreciate what this government has done, even in the critical area that where this administration is getting a lot of criticism. How can we appreciate what President Muhammadu Buhari has done in areas such as economic infrastructures? Today, Lagos,
Mr. Abdullahi, just a moment.
Rail is functioning. People
We're
are
due
taking
for a
train
break
for the
now,
first
Mr.
time in their
Abdullahi.
life. Some millennials.
Mr. Abdullahi, if you can hear me, we're due for a break now.
But courtesy of this administration,
we'll get your thoughts on that when we return, but we need to go to break. But don't forget, when you talk about the abduction, a lot of people also ask about Leah Sharibu, when she will be rescued, because that happened during this administration's time as well. And we can point to other security issues. So I'm not sure this is entirely about what this administration has done in terms of people not saying it has done well, but the things left to be done. But we'll take a look at these things when we return. So please stay with us. You're welcome back to the program. We still have joining us via Zoom, Mr. Ali Abdullahi, the Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity Office of the First Lady. He joins us from Kaduna, as well as Mr. Yabagi Sani, who is the Chairman of Action Democratic Party. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Gentlemen, thank you for your patience. But also joining us in our Lagos studio, just to broaden this conversation, Mr. Kenny Okolugbo, who's a public affairs analyst and former commissioner in Delta State. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the program.
It's always my pleasure.
So let me get you to jump in on this also. I'm sure you've caught the conversation about, let me call it a debate really, about those overwhelming number of Nigerians who look at this year, the government's performance, and say, well, we didn't quite see a lot. And then the government, of course, who's saying, well, we have done this, this, and this. So where on that divide do you belong, really?
Well, I see it as a case of the government living in self-denial. Why do I say self-denial? We had the pandemic, no doubt about that, and that maybe slowed down things in terms of the economy. But the insecurity that we have had has nothing to do with a pandemic. Today, I saw in your news headlines, Bishop Moses, the auxiliary bishop that was kidnapped in Imo State. The situation has gotten so bad that even the government itself is totally embarrassed. But what I say self-denial is because they're refusing to accept those things that are wrong with the system in terms of the three things they promised Nigerians: security, economy, and the fight against corruption. Why do I also say this? The second quarter, 6.1%, the economy shrank by that. And in the third quarter, it was 6%. Yeah. I said that. I wasn't in your studio. I was on the program. I was on Skype, and I said it was going to happen. I had the other man at the other divide, I can't remember his name now, Buhari support group, say that it wasn't going to happen. These are things that we can see. These are indices that you can see. But self-denial does not. When you don't embrace the problem, when you go to a doctor and you say you have stomach ache, when you have headache, he's going to give you antacid, most likely. He's not going to give you Panadol. And that's exactly what's happening with this government. So we are tired of saying that these things are at fault. It's not about criticizing. It's not about just going on the offensive. Like you can see, Bishop Kuka has been attacked severally by most people in the government, rather than looking at the substance of his message. So in all overview, I think the government will accept that they have failed in 2020 despite the pandemic.
You know, you talked about criticism, and that's something that is not, I mean, you find a lot of it for this government in this year alone. And in terms of taking criticism, would you say this government takes it well?
No, they don't take constructive criticism. No matter who is trying to criticize, they go on the offensive, they get angry, they get hostile, they try to make... Okay, look at the case of service chiefs. People have complained, let's rejig the security architecture of this country. Maybe apart from the Inspector General of Police, every other service chief, chief officer has been there for close to... the lifespan of Buhari's administration since 2015. But they wouldn't accept the fact that even the Senate that is led by the APC and the House of Reps that is led by the APC, that they should rejig the security architecture. So that just tells you how this government views criticism, even from his own party.
So let's ask Mr. Sonny and hear what he has to say about this government's handling of criticism. A lot of people would like to know, in handling criticism, which comes from the opposition, from Nigerians itself, just how well would you rate this government in handling it and responding to those criticism?
Well, I don't know. You see, criticism is something that a government requires, because otherwise, how do you know where you are doing well and where you are doing bad. If you remain inside, you cannot see, as somebody who is from outside. And that's why some of us who are in love with this country, we want this government to succeed because we want our country to succeed, because they are in charge at this point in time. So we must work towards this government succeeding. And that's why whenever we talk critically, in a way that government will wake up and take a second look at whatever they're doing. But I think the impression I'm getting is that they'll say, don't mind those bloody civilians, because if it's not so, how could Mr. President ignore, the entire National Assembly, the entire citizenry of this country, on a very simple matter that affects them, things about life and death is not something you just trivialize like that. So it has to be either Mr. President and the service chiefs have no respect or value of any idea coming the civilian community or whatever it is, I don't know. Otherwise, enough is enough, really, as far as insecurity in this country is concerned. We have trained, young, military officers who will chase the sky. Once we want Mr. President to challenge them for us. They will deliver, I'm sure about that, but that is not happening. You look at the economic aspect of Nigeria. Look at if you look at even the budget itself, there's nothing cheering about that budget, because a situation where you are spending more than 26%, or is it about 35% of your budget on a current expenditure, and you are going to borrow more. The deficit is about 5 point something billion, trillion rather, which is even above the threshold, that the fiscal policy threshold. And we have not seen the evidence of growing this economy, because you need to grow the economy to even solve the issue of the challenges we are having, insecurity, restiveness in the youth and things like that. So this is why Mr. President must listen to his National Assembly, to his own party, because they have come out to say that they want him to do something about this. So we are in transition, as far as I'm concerned, in this country. We are yet to get what you can call a democratic government. This is a civilian, government. It's not a democratic government yet.
Okay.
Otherwise, they will listen to us. But we are not listening to. On a matter that's very important.
Right. You've raised some germane issues. Mr. Okolugbo has also raised them. So, Mr. Abdullahi, in responding to their statements about criticisms generally, we're looking at a new year 2021, and for a lot of Nigerians, they'll be thinking, just how will this government be handling all these criticisms? How would you be taking it on board in the new year, added to the response to some of the issues they have raised?
Well, thank you, Kayode. I think when it comes to criticisms and the way this government, the administration of President Muhammad Buhari has handled the issue of criticisms, I would say we have done quite well. The administration has been very tolerant, has been accommodating, of course, the government will always listen and take the feedback from the people, especially constructive criticisms, and then you can see some of those feedbacks in the policies that government design or continue to review, whether be it on the economic front or be it in other areas. But at the end of the day, the government can only take feedback, but the government is in a better position, has better information with regards to the choices and the policies, how they actually will formulate and implement those policies. This is why we trusted, the government, the administration, and voted them into power. And because we have that trust that they will do right by the Nigerian people. So I want to believe that going into 2021, the government will continue to be tolerant of criticisms and will continue to work on how to take those feedbacks and use those good ones and better the policies and the implementation of its projects and programs and decisions.
Right. Well, Mr. Abdullahi, you are the SSA to the President on Media and Publicity Office of the First Lady. So can you tell us, is the wife of the president in the country as we speak?
I can't hear you, sorry.
I'm asking if the wife of the president, the first lady, is in the country as we speak.
I'm sorry, Kaide, this is not part of what I was actually invited here to discuss in your studio. I will not be speaking on that because it's not part of what we agreed for me to come and discuss. So let us leave that issue out of the interview, please.
Well, Mr. Abdullahi, the news is in the public forum, and I thought this would present an opportunity for you to either clear the air or otherwise, but you're clearly choosing not to speak on that. I'm sure you know that this information will definitely help Nigerians to make informed discussions when next this appears on media. So are you still saying that you don't want to respond?
Let me say it this way again. The First Lady, although, married to the president, nevertheless, she is a citizen of this country who is entitled to her own right to privacy. So I think if she chooses not to speak on a particular subject at any point in time, she's entitled to her own right to privacy. And that is where I wish to leave that issue as of now. That is her own right, and she do not choose to speak at this material.
Well, Mr. Abdullahi,
and I will not.
Understandable, but please extend greetings to her at this Yuletide period.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show for tonight. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Mr. Yabagi Sani, the chairman of ADP, as well as Mr. Leo Abdullahi, the associate to the president office of the First Lady, and Mr. Okolugbo Kenny, who joins us right here in our Abuja studio. Thank you also for your time. Well, that's our show. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kairo Kikoludo. Have a great night.